Okay, so the housing market. It's been absolutely wild, right? Sky-high prices, crazy bidding wars. I mean, you've seen it. So the big question on everyone's mind is, what's next? Well, today, we're going to decode what the experts are saying about the 2026 housing market so you can get the clearest possible picture of what's coming down the pike. Let's dive in.
Yeah, this is the one, isn't it? The question that everybody is asking, whether you're thinking of buying, selling, or just watching your home's value. After the roller coaster we've been on, are prices finally going to come down in 2026?
And listen, the stakes here are huge. To really get why this matters so much, just think about this. Since 2019, just a few years ago, home prices across the country have shot up by an incredible 60%. 60. That kind of climb is exactly why this question feels so urgent for so many of us.
All right, so to get you some real answers, here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll start with that big 2026 question. Then we'll look at the affordability crisis we're in right now. From there, we'll see how the 2025 cooldown kind of set the stage, and then, the main event, we'll get into the expert forecasts, what they're calling a great reset. We'll also cover why your location matters more than ever, and, most importantly, what all of this actually means for you.
Okay, let's start with that big question. Are we finally going to see a shift? After years where it felt like sellers held all the cards, bidding wars, no inspections, is 2026 the year the tables finally turn for buyers?
But before we can even look forward, we've got to be really clear about where we're standing right now. And the hard truth is, as we head out of 2025, we are deep in a serious affordability crisis.
And this right here, this really puts the problem into perspective. Traditionally, a house was considered affordable if it cost about 3 times what a household earned in a year. Simple enough. But today, look at that. It's jumped to 5 times the median income. That huge gap, that's the whole story right there. That's the affordability challenge we're all facing.
And we're not the only ones who think that's a big deal. Experts like Daniel McHugh over at Harvard's Joint Center for Housing Studies, they call this ratio shocking. And when a Harvard expert uses a word like shocking, we're way off from what's considered normal.
So what does this actually mean for people? Well, it has a very real impact. The home ownership rate in the U.S. has actually dropped to its lowest point since 2019. This isn't just a number on a chart. It means that the American dream of owning a home is literally getting pushed further out of reach for more and more people.
But, things started to change. The market isn't static. In 2025, we began to see some really important shifts, a bit of a cool down actually, that started setting the scene for what the experts are predicting for 2026.
So here's kind of the story of 2025 in a nutshell. First, that crazy pandemic buying frenzy, it finally fizzled out. Then, over the summer, as homes just kept getting more and more expensive, buyer demand started to drop. And what happens when demand drops? You guessed it. The number of homes for sale, the inventory, finally started to grow, giving buyers more to choose from than they'd seen in a long time.
And Lawrence Yun, who's the chief economist for the National Association of Realtors, he backs this up. He points out that the inventory situation is clearly improving, and that means home buyers finally have what they've been desperate for: choices.
Okay, so we've got more homes for sale and buyers who aren't quite as frantic. So, what does that mean for 2026? What are the experts actually predicting? Are we looking at what some are calling a great reset?
All right, when you lay out all the big forecasts side by side, a really clear picture starts to form. And here's the headline. Nobody, and I mean nobody, is calling for a market crash. Instead, you've got the big players like Redfin, Realtor.com, Coltalati. They're all in the same ballpark, predicting these modest price bumps, maybe 1 to 4%. But look at the sales forecast from the National Association of Realtors, a potential 14% rebound in sales. That tells us they expect more buyers to jump back in. It's all pointing towards a much more stable, predictable market.
And there's a key phrase the NAR is using to describe this: a neutral market. What does that mean? Basically, we're shifting away from that crazy seller's market we saw during the pandemic. In 26, it's not going to be all one-sided. Buyers and sellers will both have some room to negotiate. It's a much more balanced playing field.
But, and this is a huge but, those national numbers, they're just an average. They don't tell the whole story. The truth on the ground is that the U.S. is basically becoming a tale of 2 completely different housing markets. So check this out. On one side, you have the Midwest and the Northeast. In those places, there still aren't enough homes for sale, so prices are expected to keep climbing. But then you look at the Sun Belt, places like Florida and Texas, where there was this massive building boom. Well, there, inventory has shot up and prices are either stalling out or, in some cases, even starting to drop. And Selma Hepp, she's the chief economist over at Quotality. She just nails it. She says the market is going to stay bifurcated, which is just a fancy way of saying it's split in two. This is so important. It means your personal housing situation in 2026 depends almost entirely on where you live. What's happening one state over could be the total opposite of what's happening on your street.
Okay, so we've covered the affordability crisis, the 2025 cool down, and the expert forecasts. So what in the world does this all mean for you? Let's boil it all down to the key takeaways.
All right, if you remember anything from this, remember these three things. First, take a deep breath. Nobody is predicting a 2008-style crash. The experts see slow, modest growth. Second, get ready for a more balanced market. You'll likely have more choices and more negotiating power as a buyer. And third, and this is the big one, location, location, location. You've got to do your homework on your local market because that's the only one that really, truly matters.
So let's just recap one last time. We're looking at a great reset, not a great collapse. Expect a more neutral market where buyers actually have some choice. The big story is that split between the Sun Belt, which is cooling off, and the Midwest, which is still heating up. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to understanding your own local micro market.
And that really leaves us with the final, most important question, the one you have to answer for yourself. Now that you know all this, what does the market actually look like where you live? With this big picture in mind, you can now start digging into what's happening in your own backyard and make the best decision for you. So, what's the story of the 2026 housing market right on your block?